I know this story is going to be a little hard for some to believe. Many who have read my story in the past have wondered how a 17-year-old boy could possibly be so stupid and ignorant. And that is the point of the story. When we children left the Children's Home Society orphanage, we knew absolutely nothing about the outside world. We didn't know what a job application was, much less how to get a job. We didn't know how to cook, how to drive a car, where money came from, or how we would even clean our clothes. We were totally secluded from the real world, and we had not the slightest idea about the workings of such a strange and unusual place. I was placed into the United States Army at age 16, just several months before my 17th birthday, by an order of Juvenile Judge Marion M. Gooding. About 3 days into my basic training, and having no idea how stupid I was, this is when the realization hit me that something was very wrong. The name of this story is titled Mail Call. Okay, man, listen up. I want each of you to sit down this evening and write a letter home. I know that each of you will be telling your family how much you love the United States Army. Is that fully understood? Yelled Sergeant O'Rourke, the field first of our squad. Yes, sir, screamed the entire platoon of men. Dismissed, he bellowed. There were soldiers running in every direction, headed back to their individual barracks. I was 16 years old, and this was my first week of basic training at Fort Gordon, Georgia. I generally stayed in the barracks when mail call was announced. Why would I go running like a maniac when mail arrived? I mean, I didn't have a family, and I'm very sure that the orphanage in Jacksonville, Florida was not going to be sending me any goodwill wishes. I would sit on my bunk and shine my boots, trying not to notice the commotion. The other men received handfuls of mail and packages from home. I have to admit that it did bother me a little bit when I saw them eating cookies and that their parents had sent them. Overall, it really didn't bother me, I guess. I didn't have anybody who would write me, and that's just the way it was. There was nothing I could do about it, so I tried not to think about it. After showering, I dressed and headed over to the PX store. I purchased a Coke and a package of cheese crackers, then I sat down at one of the small tables. Just as I finished my Coca-Cola, I looked up, and there was Sergeant O'Rourke walking in. "What are you doing in here, soldier?" screamed the sergeant. "Drinking a Coca-Cola, sir." "Hit the deck and give me 25, he ordered. I immediately hit the floor and started counting out the push-ups as I performed them. "Why aren't you in the barracks writing your family as I instructed?" "I don't have any family, sir," I replied as I continued to do the push-ups. "I don't give a rat's ass if you have a family or not. I told you to write home." "But I don't have a home to write to, sir." "Then where the hell did you come from here, soldier?" he questioned. "I came from an orphanage, sir." The sergeant took his foot and kicked one of my arms out from under me, causing my chest to hit the floor. Then he put his foot in the middle of my back and pressed down as hard as he could. "Don't you be handing me that line of bull crap, son." "Really, Sergeant, I don't have no family. Really, I don't." "Then you get your butt back over to the barracks right now. You write me a letter and you bring it to me. Do you understand that?" he shouted. "But who do I write to, Sergeant?" "I don't give a darn if you write to Santa Claus. You just write me a damn letter, and you have it to me by 1800 hours. You understand that, soldier?" "Yes, sir," I said as I got up off the floor. I walked back to my barracks, and I borrowed a tablet and a pencil from one of the men of my squad. I sat down on my bunk, and I wrote the following letter. "Dear Santa Claus, I am now living at Fort Gordon. I'm in the Army now. The Army is my new home. I'm learning a lot about how to win a war. I can shoot and run very fast, and I'm making my very own money for the first time, and I'm going to be a real soldier someday. Roger Dean Kiser." I took the letter, placed it into an envelope, and I sealed it. I walked over to the orderly room and asked to see the sergeant. I was advised that he was not in the office and that I should place the letter on his desk. I placed the seal envelope on the corner of his desk, and I returned to my barracks. At 9 o'clock, the lights were out and everyone was in their bunk. I lay there thinking about how hard life was in the Army. I said a prayer asking God to help me keep up with the other men as we trained. Just as I was about to fall asleep, the lights came on. "Where is that little piece of crap?" demanded the sergeant as he came walking between the bunks. I sat up in my bed and I watched the sergeant as he stomped down the aisle and stopped at the foot of my bunk. The other men also sat up but remained perfectly quiet. "What is this garbage?" asked the sergeant as he shook the letter that I had written. "It's the letter you told me to write, sir." "Read this letter out loud," he instructed, throwing it on the end of my bunk. Slowly, I picked up the letter and I began to read. "Dear Santa Claus, I'm now living at Fort Gordon. I'm in the Army now. The Army is my new home. I'm learning a lot about how to win a war. I can shoot and run really fast. And I'm making my very own money for the first time, and I'm going to be a real soldier someday." The entire barracks began to laugh and whistle as loud as they could. "Shut up!" yelled Sergeant O'Roy. The barracks became perfectly quiet. "You think I'm a damn idiot?" asked the sergeant. "No, sir, Sergeant O'Roy, sir." The large man reached down, grabbed my footlocker, and turned it upside down. The contents spilled all over the floor. "But I only wrote what you told me to write, Sergeant," I said. "I told you to write home," he argued. "No, sir, Sergeant, I told you I didn't have no home or family, and you told me to write Santa Claus. That's why I don't get any mail here, because I don't have a home." All the men in the barracks looked at one another. One of the men sitting on the side of his bed began to laugh. "Santa Claus," he said, laughing aloud. Everybody in the barracks stared at him, and he stopped laughing. "Clean up this damn mess and report to me in the morning," he yelled. As the sergeant left the barracks, he turned out the light, leaving me to pack my footlocker in the dark. About a week later, I was shocked to hear my name called out for mail call. "Kiser! Kiser! Kiser!" yelled the man as he set 3 packages aside. Over the next 3 weeks of my basic training, I received 7 more packages of cookies and hard candy in the mail. I never knew from whom they came. There was no return address on the packages. I could only guess that they came from the families of the men in my platoon, maybe even from Sergeant O'Rourke himself. That night, as I lay in my bunk after sharing cookies and candy with the other men, I knew for sure that the United States of America was a wonderful place. I had finally found something in my life worth defending and dying for. It's very important that we support our troops, even if we disagree with the war. No young person in their right mind wants to go to war, and no young person wants to die. But the hardest thing of all is having to go to war and fight for freedom when one has no idea what the word freedom even feels like.